Hi friends, my name is Catherine Kalu and welcome to Soul Chats.
Even the spiders take their time, winding their webs with delicate threads, and we can sit and watch as the moon rises, and an army of clouds climb over the mountains as peaceful as a fallen tree, and as wild as a sycamore seed.
Hello people, welcome to episode 4 of Soul Chats. Here's a reminder, if you haven't already, to go check out the trailer and first few episodes of the podcast to get to know me a bit more and have some more soul time with yourself. And of course, please do not forget to leave Soul Chats a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already. I would very much appreciate it. As for today's episode, I had the absolute pleasure of chatting with Genevieve Geller. She is someone who very much inspires me through her passions and her talent and her immense creativity. So talking with her about what being creative means was just an absolute dream. I would highly recommend checking her out online and supporting her work. As always, you can find links to our guest platforms on our website, soulchatsbycatherine.com. Alrighty friends, with that, I hope you enjoy episode 4 of Soul Chats. Okay. Hi Genevieve.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being on the show on Soul Chats.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
So we'll just dive into it as we do. So I'm going to ask you, how is your soul doing today?
My soul is doing all right. It's definitely been an interesting time to be a recent graduate and just be a person in the world. I've been trying to, stay sane and stay happy. But with everything going on in the world right now, I definitely, it changes your perspective a lot on a lot of things. And I think, the silver lining of everything that's going on with police brutality and with the pandemic is that it's bringing a lot of change. And I've never seen so many of my peers be so engaged in politics and activism. So I would say that's a silver lining to everything. But overall, it's been an interesting time, I don't know.
It's definitely a time, yeah.
if
No, I think you're right, though. I think it's a huge wake-up call, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, this is obviously a terrible situation for a lot of people. But I'm the same way, too. I think I try to, always look the silver lining in things, especially when things are kind of, this intense.
Yeah. And I felt like before this, everything about life was so fast-paced that this pandemic really provided that stop and that slowdown that we needed to kind of re-examine the way our society has been for so long, and give people the time to become engaged with it. So I think that's a really, really positive thing that's come out of all of this. But, it's definitely put a roadblock in my plan post-grad. So I'm just
post-grad life.
Just trying to work through that.
Yeah, I totally get it. I feel like everyone who I've asked how their soul's doing lately is very much in the same boat. But like I say, I think all right and is kind of the best you can ask for some days. And as long as you're able to cling on to that and the silver lining and stuff, I think that's the best we can do sometimes. So yeah. I'm glad to hear you're doing all right. So I just kind of want to tell people kind of how we connected. So you're actually kind of one of my first guests that I'm not super close with, to be honest with you. So Genevieve and I went to college together.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, I don't know, I somehow followed your design Instagram and your personal Instagram. I know we have some mutual friends and stuff. but I just kind of like fangirled over you, like over your social media since like I want to say like junior year. I could be wrong.
Wow.
You're like blushing. You're like, oh. And then I'm trying to think. And then there was this like philanthropy, like small event thing. And you were like selling some of your like graphic design prints and stuff, right?
Yeah. I got reached out to just come and sell some prints and stickers, and I was like, sure, why not? So it was a fun little backyard event. Got to meet a bunch of people, share my work. So yeah, and that's when we met and started chatting.
And I was like, hi, not to be the biggest stalker, but I think you're the coolest person. And this was a while. This was like in the fall, I think, right?
Yeah,
maybe in the
definitely pre-pandemic.
It's definitely pre-pandemic. And I was like, I think you're super cool. You're someone who like definitely inspires me, even if you don't know me. Oh, sorry. But and then I asked her, I was like, would you want to be on my podcast? And she was like super cool. And she was like, sure, I guess. And then pandemic happened. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to reach out to her. We're like getting into soul chats and stuff.
Here we are.
So that's how we connected. Jenna is just like, you're just really like, I just through your social media, like I can tell like you're a really passionate person, because like everything you talk about on there, you talk about with such like eloquence and like education. Like you like research your stuff. You don't just like say things to say them. Like you say them and you know what you're saying, and you don't just do it half-assed. Like you do it wholeheartedly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely am the type of person that if I put any kind of like message out into social media or the world, like I want to make sure that I exactly have like done my research. And I feel like in general, the reason I like design is kind of this like refined communication where like you're really putting a lot of attention into the message that you're putting out there. That I generally don't like an excess of ideas and things, and design for me is a way to kind of like refine these thoughts and put it into like a nice package. So I think I kind of go at everything with my communication in that way, like just trying to get to the root of something, like what's the important information? How do I explain this or show this in a way that's like most effective and most comprehensive? So yeah, that's definitely what I'm thinking about when I post on social media. I don't want an influx of like too much information, but yeah.
That's so cool. I've never like, I'm not a graphic designer. Like Canva is like my kind of extent. So that's super cool to kind of hear your perspective and like where you kind of find you're like, it's more than just like coloring or, whatever, like aesthetic. It's very much like communication and messaging, which I'm communication major at college. Like, I think that's super fun and cool.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on being a designer. I would love if people, or if you just like told everyone kind of like your story, like your background, anything like you want them to like see your platforms and stuff, because I'm sure people are going to want to like look into you and stuff.
Yeah. So I just graduated from Chapman University, as we previously mentioned, with a BFA in graphic design. And I also studied leadership. So all that kind of like emotional intelligence type information. But yeah, prior to coming to Chapman, I grew up in a really creative household. My parents are both writers, and my mom has always been into visual arts. So like I always grew up doing craft projects, like finding rocks in the yard and putting Google eyes on them, and then building them houses out of cardboard boxes and stuff. So I kind of came into design with like a studio art background. I have always loved like drawing and painting, but I found with graphic design, it's kind of getting around that, like getting past the idea that you need to be able to render something perfectly, and more about like the style of the imagery and communication. Like I've always been someone that loves strategy and math as well as art. So it's kind of this middle ground where you can use strategy and use mathematics to create artwork. So that's a little bit about me, but my work is definitely really illustration focused, because I do have that basis in fine art and drawing, and like drawing has always been something that I've turned to for like, you know, happiness and like it's just something I love to do in my free time. So yeah, that's a little bit about my backstory. I guess if this is the time to share my my work, I have a website, GenevieveGeller.com. It's my name. I'm not going to spell it out because I assume
I'll put it on there. Don't worry.
And then my design Instagram is gen.indd, which is like the InDesign file name. I feel like a lot of people don't get that, which is fair.
That's so adorable. I didn't, but that's so cute. I'm obsessed with that now. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are like totally unaware of what my handle means, but that's okay.
I thought it was like a middle name. I was like, oh, you know, fun, cute. Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely like have the websites and stuff in the description and stuff for people to check you out. But as you can see, Genevieve is a very passionate person, especially when it comes to kind of creativity. So when I kind of asked you like, okay, like what are you kind of like wanting to chat about when we have our soul chat? We ranted for 30 minutes. And I was like, we should save this for the chat. I was like, this is like really like perfect. And I kind of encompassed it and kind of like, you know, air quotes called it on being a creator.
Yeah.
Which can kind of I think we're going to dive into a lot of different things because that encompasses so much, which I'm really excited about. But what made you specifically kind of like passionate and like wanting to talk about this right now?
I think for me, at the very base of it, like creativity is something that I turn to just to like feel a certain sense of fulfillment in my life. Like right now I have a post-grad internship at an ad agency, and for a while, like for the first month of that, I was just kind of focusing on my work, like 8-hour days. I was on the East Coast and the office is in LA, so I was working noon to 9 p.m. and I didn't have very much time. Obviously, I slept in until noon every day, so it didn't leave much time to do personal projects. But after a little while of doing that, I was feeling really kind of like creatively starved, just because that kind of work wasn't exactly as fulfilling as what I was used to doing. So it was a good reminder how beneficial it is to do passion projects. So yeah, I kind of, I don't know what the original question is, but
just kind of like what's like inspiring you to like chat about this right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Refocus here.
You're so good.
Yeah. I just think, at least for me, it's something that really helps me like stay centered and stay feeling fulfilled in my life. And I think that's something that a lot of people could benefit from. And talking to one of my friends a little while ago, she's in theater and performing arts, and she was telling me how she like really likes doing art, drawing and visual arts, but feels this kind of barrier with it where like she's afraid to do it even by herself because she doesn't want to mess up and she doesn't want to fail in quotes. And I feel like that's such an unfortunate thing that I hadn't really thought about for a while, because I was always so encouraged from a young age to do craft projects and not worry about the aspect of failure. But I really think everyone could benefit from having some kind of creative outlet, and just like knowing that you don't have to be a like good drawer to do creative projects. Like I think it's such a shame that in our education we're discouraged from doing things that maybe we're not like naturally good at. But I think there's so many different ways to be creative, and it's really good for you. It's really good for your soul to do stuff like that. So yeah, I if people could listen to this and feel inspired to take on some kind of creative project
No, that's so fun. I totally agree. I know like I'm probably more so like your friend maybe in that respect then, because I don't think I was ever like discouraged or, you know, whatever growing up. I think, you know, coloring in school was like you did arts and crafts up until like a certain point, but I think just the focus has always been like education. And anything else wasn't, again, neglected, but I think it was second to that.
Yeah.
And I think especially with the way our education system is set up, especially as you get into more of like middle school, especially in high school, unless that's kind of like, this is it for you, like you're doing AP, whatever, ceramics, all that stuff. It's just not there's no time for it.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's really unfortunate too that like even, like I always liked art, but I didn't think of it as something I could pursue as a career until I graduated from high school. Like I applied to all of my schools as a business major because I was like,
no way.
I was like, well, I want to do art, but I guess I'll get into art through business because that's like the safe way. And then after I committed to Chapman, I was looking through the business classes and I was like, calculus again? I'm not doing that.
You're like, for 4 years? No, thank you.
And I saw the graphic design program and was looking at all of the classes and I was like, wow, I want to take every single one of these classes. But yeah, even, I took AP studio art in high school and, even being involved in the arts throughout high school, I still felt like, oh, this isn't a real career path. And now, like, I just wish I could be like that voice of reason for people that want to go into something creative, because I honestly feel like I'm in a very good position, like specifically with graphic design. Like every single industry needs graphic design. It's not, you can work in the medical industry, advertising, movie posters. I mean, here in LA, that's a lot bigger. Yeah, it's like I see a very high demand for graphic designers, and there are also so many different avenues with creativity that are super in demand jobs. So yeah,
that's so interesting. I have, this is super kind of random. Have you ever seen the movie Kiki's Delivery Service?
Oh my God, it's my favorite movie. I love that.
You're kidding.
Yeah. I love all the Studio Ghibli movies.
It's so magical. Yeah.
Delivery Service has a very special place in my heart because
perfect. Yeah.
I mean, I love I'm definitely really inspired by the animation style of all those movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love the whimsical characters, and they're just the best. Like they're so
it's breathtaking. Yeah. No, I'm obsessed. It's like Howl's Moving Castle, which is one of my favorite top 2 movies, by far. But I just watched Kiki's Delivery Service during quarantine, and I was like, oh my gosh,
was it your first time?
Yeah, it was. I just had never. I don't know. I never watched it before. I don't know how I missed it, but and I was just like, whoa. That's because I was I watched it honestly maybe a month ago, not too long ago. And it was right when I was really getting soul chats on the ground, going. And so, and I would kind of consider this my creative outlet for the moment, at least one of them. I think there's more than one, obviously, but this is my main one at the moment. And it was so interesting because so spoiler alert, sorry if you haven't seen the movie. So she's a witch, and it's more of a rarity in this world to be a witch. So she can fly, and people think that's really cool, it's whatever, random. And she starts as whatever the title says, a delivery service, because she can fly on a broomstick and whatever. And I don't remember who, another one of the characters was oh, isn't it fun to be flying and and she's yeah, it was fun before I started doing it for work.
Yeah.
And I paused and I was okay, whoa, that's so I don't know, that really hit me. And I was wondering since you've been creative your whole life and done it more on a hobby, I don't know if hobby is the right word for that, kind of place,
totally,
space, how has it been for you kind of now doing it as a professional kind of career?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, this, as I kind of touched on before, for most of my life, it was just kind of this thing that I did for fun. Never really thought of it as a career path. And now being graduated, I've had a fair share of internships, but kind of short term. Now working at this ad agency, I definitely see the line between like job and, you know, really truly fulfilling creativity. That's not to say that in my job I don't do things that, you know, it's kind of the difference between like solving a problem at my job. Like, okay, the client needs this. Like, how are we going to figure out a visual solution that serves the client first? Because that's like always the priority in a corporate setting.
Right.
Versus like when I do stuff for myself, I see something that inspires me, like in my environment. I'm like, oh, this would be really fun to make into a graphic. I think the end goal for me is to find that sweet spot where I can do things for fun that are also for work. Which is why like freelancing sounds like a really great opportunity and a really good path to go down. But I think the key is like making work for fun that could also be applied to like a business setting. So for example, like for the past week or two, I've been finding like businesses around LA that I feel like need a complete facelift.
I love this series of yours. Oh my gosh.
And so I've been like taking, the first place I found was called Paramount Mattress. And I was just driving around like, and I saw this like mural on the side of their building, and it just said like in big red type, like Paramount Mattress. And it had this kind of like mattress illustration in perspective, just kind of like floating in the air. And when I was driving by, I didn't get the chance to snap a picture of it, but I just kept thinking about it. And when I thought back about it, I'm like envisioning all these like shooting stars and like this beautiful scene around it. And then I looked it up on Google Street View, and it was just very stark. Like I built it up to be something so much bigger in my head. And then I was like, okay, they're missing an opportunity here. Like I need to make a design for them and just like create this beautiful new look for Paramount Mattress. And so then I was like, you know what, this could be a pretty fun passion project, just finding different places in LA that need new design. And I think that's a good example of something that could turn into real work. Like obviously it's really early on in this series, but my hope is that just by doing these things for fun, businesses might see them and be like, whoa, we want this.
Yeah.
And then hire me.
And pay you to do that.
But I think that's some of the best advice that I've gotten from like different creative professionals is like, make the work that you want to get paid for eventually. Like invest time in projects that you find are fulfilling. And people will start to hire you for that kind of stuff. So that's where I see like bridging the gap between, you know, work for work and work for fulfillment. But it's definitely a tough place. Like you definitely have to pay your dues in the corporate world, I think, to get that experience. And like I certainly have a lot more to learn before I'm ready to branch out as a freelancer. So yeah.
No, it's super relevant. There's like do you know Alan Watts, like the philosopher? It's this guy. I think he's like I feel like you would really like him. You should like look him up. But there's this whole quote he has on kind of how everything that you are interested or passionate about, even if it's something that seems niche, there's bound to be other people that are interested or also passionate about that.
Absolutely.
And if you like, he worded it much more eloquently, so I'm kind of just like whatever here. But if you kind of like invest and like keep doing that thing that you love doing and that you're passionate about, you eventually become an expert at it. And everyone wants an expert.
Yeah.
You know? So once you're able to kind of get there, you're able to kind of like, you know, make a living off of it. And I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. Yeah. Like, cool.
I feel like that completely aligns with like all of the like portfolio advice I've gotten with design. Like people will tell you to only put in the stuff that you want to do. Don't try and show that you can do everything, because like,
interesting.
You're more likely to get hired if you're an expert at one thing than like capable of many things. I guess, again, I'm talking like very specifically with graphic design, but
okay. That makes sense, I think, in general too, though. Yeah. It's like you're kind of like manifesting, and what you're attracting is like what you do and what people see.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I kind of have like some like meta questions for you because I'm just super curious on like your like thoughts on like these, but like okay, there's a few. So first off, what does it mean to you to like be a creator?
Hmm. That's a tough one.
No pressure.
Um, I think at the core of it, it's just to be making things for yourself, things that make you feel personally fulfilled. I feel like I keep repeating the word fulfilled, but
It's an important word.
I don't think you're gonna really succeed in your craft until you're excited about what you're making. It's really hard with Instagram seeing. I see a lot of like new designers and new illustrators, and like I mean I'm certainly a new designer, new illustrator, but I wouldn't call myself an expert. But with Instagram, there's such like a saturation of work, and a lot of what I see is like just the same exact thing that other people are putting out. Like it's just it can be pretty exhausting to scroll through design pages and illustration pages on Instagram because everyone is copying this like same style that they saw on Pinterest. And I've definitely been there. I feel like when you're starting out, like it's hard. It's really hard to come up with your own style.
Yeah.
And so you start by copying things that you see, and that's okay. But for me, like it didn't like feel quite right to be doing that, and it didn't really feel super fulfilling until I got to this place where like, okay, if I have an image in my mind, like I can kind of like sketch it out the way I see it. And that pressure to kind of like produce work that fits within this mold is not fun to me. Like it's like the same thing about like you can't ever compare yourself to others like on a personal level because you'll never exceed like that. You'll never meet the like expectations of other people. I feel like I'm
especially their highlight reel on Instagram. No,
but like I think with creating and with just being like a happy person, you need to be doing stuff for you. You can't. Yeah.
That's so wholesome. I love that. So kind of like with that, do you like, is someone being creative, is that like not rare, but like are some people creative and some people aren't, or do you think everyone's creative?
Oh, I think everyone is creative. I think that people are conditioned to think that they're not from an early age, which is
snaps to that.
Oh my God, I just got a taco delivery.
I'm so jealous.
Thank you.
I'll just sip on my iced coffee in sadness.
I think it's a shame that like I think everyone has the capability to be creative, but it just like any other skill or anything else that you can learn, like math or science, like it's something that you have to cultivate. And I think that a lot of areas of study don't necessarily push that creativity and how to learn creativity, because I definitely feel like that's probably the most fulfilling, or not fulfilling. I'm done using that word.
I love it. Please keep using it.
The most valuable thing that I learned in school wasn't like the software for design. It was the way, like how to think about design, how to ideate, how to come up with different solutions to problems. And I just think that that's something that a lot of people don't get to exercise, but everyone is definitely capable of. And my personal way of like, reinvigorating my sense of creativity is sketching. Kind of like just pencil to paper, not sometimes even doing it like, intuitively, like when I'm feeling like really, really not creative. Sometimes it just takes like aimlessly scribbling on the page, like drawing little things, like first thing that comes to mind. And then I would say like the most valuable thing I've done is like a daily drawing challenge, like every single day, just trying to sketch something. Because once you do that day after day, you start to get past that feeling of like, oh, I have no idea what I want to draw. Like feeling that creative block. Like you just have to go in and do it and not care if it's bad and not care if like you're content with how it comes out. Again, like I'm sure there are other different like methods that work for other people. For me as like a visual artist, it's sketching, but yeah, I mean, just to go back to your original question, I definitely think that everyone is creative. I don't think it's like something that you have or don't have. I think it's just the way that you train your mind, like the same way that you learn a language where you need some time for the pathways to form in your brain. Like it's the exact same thing with creativity. It's just like if you're exercising it, you'll get better at it. You know,
it's like a muscle or like a skill that like it's there. You just need to kind of work on it.
Totally. Yeah.
That's so cool. Oh my God, I just lost my train of thought. I was like, I had such a good question. Okay. Got it. So I think for me, sorry, we're talking all about me, but I just like try to relate to this like in the ways I can. But I'm a huge perfectionist.
Yeah. Me too.
You are too. Okay, so I was going to kind of ask, because I feel like with graphic design, there like needs to be some aspect of perfectionism because there's such like a minute detail to it that's, you know, delivering to a client and all that. But at the same time, it can never be perfect because it's kind of this, you know, creative thing. And I feel like especially with creation, especially in kind of like an artistic sense, like what you do with graphic design, it's very much like beauty's in the eye of the beholder type of thing. So for me, like with my like kind of like struggles with perfectionism, I like don't even bother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So kind of, if you kind of like also kind of feel that perfectionism, like Absolutely. How do you kind of find yourself like, I don't know, overcoming it or like working through that?
Yeah, I definitely, I would say the most like the strongest manifestation of my perfectionism is my like constant need to redesign my portfolio. And I haven't quite gone over that yet, but
I love it.
Yeah. I like every other week I'm like, I need to redo it. Not good enough.
All of it.
But I think the way that I've kind of gotten over it, like within individual projects, is just like creating that space where things don't need to be perfect. Like for me, you know, I can't just get on the computer and start designing. Like I really need to sketch stuff out because that's where I feel like my brain is like most free to mess up. And sometimes you just have to get those like bad ideas out there, you know, like if you're trying to ideate like 20 ideas for like a logo, you know, you're obviously going to think of like something pretty straightforward right away. And rather than saying like, nope, not good enough, like sketch it out, get it down, get it out of your brain, and then move on. I think like being able to get those messy ideas out there first and then refine from there, at least in the design process, is really helpful for me. But as far as perfectionism, like trying to think of other ways that it manifests in my life, in my work. I feel like I'm talking a lot about design, but I think at least with that medium, there's a lot of rules that you can learn, like with typography, how to lay out type, that once you get those rules in your brain, you can kind of learn how to break them and you'll be able to create work that like looks good and is something unique. I don't know. I think now that I've kind of, you know, gotten a better understanding of the rules of design, I have so much more control to create something that I'm proud of. So I think that just comes with like education and experience and practice. Like everyone says practice, but it's true. Like if you love doing it, you're going to get good at it because you're going to practice. So,
right.
I guess I don't know if that answers the question well enough.
I don't think there is kind of an answer to it. I think it's just like a very individualized process, and I think everyone kind of deals with perfectionism to some extent, you know, in some ways or like for the other. I think I just first need to push myself more to like not say no, like stop with that negative self-talk and just like be like, this isn't for anyone else. Like this is for me, and like why does it need to be perfect? You know, there's no need. You kind of touched on your like creative process a little bit. But like your like facelift, is that what you're calling it? Your little facelift?
Sure. Yeah, like, I haven't settled on a title yet, but that works.
The Olympic donuts. I like cried. I was like, this is so beautiful and like genius. And like I told you about like one of my graphic designer friends who I don't know, on our last call I mentioned you to her, and I like sent it to her immediately. I was like this is so amazing, and she was like, I don't know how you just do that, like that's just insane. So I kind of like, I wonder like for you, like what your, and I wonder if it's different too, just amongst like either like your like what medium you're using or like what, you know, the like space that you're in is, but like what's kind of like your basic like creative process?
Okay, well for that one, like, so I saw a place called Olympic Donuts, and they had a very simple sign. It was just like the Olympic rings and then like a regular sans serif font. And I was like, well, that's a shame, because like those Olympic rings could be made out of donuts. Like, so that was the seed of an idea. And then I was like, okay, do I just like remake the logo as like donut Olympic rings? But then I wanted it to have a little bit more personality. I'm definitely one that loves like kind of like whimsical things and kind of just like silly work. Like I would categorize a lot of my work as kind of silly, which is good.
I love that.
There's a market for silly work. But with that one, I just kind of had the image in my mind. Like I wanted these like action figure donuts that are like jumping through the air. Like, and so with that one, I actually just started sketching on my iPad. On my Instagram, you can see like the process video. So with that one, I truly just kind of had that image. And rather than starting in my sketchbook, I was just like, you know what, I'll sketch on my iPad, because it's basically the same thing. Like, but yeah, so I typically will do like a fake pencil outline on my iPad and kind of get that exactly the way I want it before I start, because it's so much harder to add in like color and shading if you don't have that outline just the way you want it. So yeah, I sketched it out, and then I started adding on flat color. And at first I thought maybe I would just stop at like the flat color, because it's more of like a graphic look. But then I was like, you know what, it could be cool to add some like light and shadow, make this a little bit 3D, since they're all kind of like coming out in different directions. So yeah, I just like kept going with it. Kind of got carried away. I will say that was out of the 3 posters I've done so far, that one I definitely spent the most time on, because I was like,
how long is that?
I never know how long I work, you know.
You're like 3 weeks.
Once you're in right brain mode, the time just kind of like zooms by, and you're like, wow, it's already dark out.
So like at least like a few hours.
Oh yeah, definitely more than a few hours. Like I did it over the course of a few days. And also with that perfectionism, like I never want to like put work out on social media too early, because then it'll torment me. Because I'm like, oh, like I'll notice something as soon as I post it that I wish I had changed, and then I don't want it to be up on my page anymore, but then I already put it out there.
It's a portfolio. You have to like redo it every week.
Exactly.
I know, I get it.
So yeah, so I definitely have installed a little waiting period for myself now when I make work, because, you know, like I can never post it the same day of, because in the morning I'll be like, no, why did I post that? But yeah, that was a long effort, but I had a lot of fun with that. And I've never really I haven't fully dabbled in like 3D illustration. So it was kind of a new, exciting territory for me with that one.
It's so fun. I would highly recommend for people to go check it out because I like look forward. I always like check and I'm like, I'm happy when it's because I think my algorithm knows now that I want to see it because it's like the first thing that popped up and I was like, ooh, and I just like I love watching them like create like the process video because I'm like, it looks easy, you know, like you make it look easy, and I'm like, this isn't easy. Like this is just not, you know, like there's creation, there's like being creative, but this is like, you know. This is skill and like practice.
Yeah, just takes a lot of practice. I mean, I still don't think I've like developed my style, like my concrete, this is what all my work is going to look like. But yeah, it's just practice of like sketching things, you know, like one of my favorite things to do is, particularly when I was like abroad, it was easier to do this because I was in a very walkable city, but just like go around and see little things that are like little moments of joy. Like I loved watching the pigeons interact with each other and like steal food from restaurants and, you know, swarm a table as soon as someone left. And then like sketching those little things, the way that I kind of observe it in my brain versus like what reality is, you know, kind of playing up that story behind the pigeons and why they're swarming this table and drinking out of the wine glasses and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely not America. It's definitely romantic Italy. That's cool.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think that's so funny. I need to like connect you with the girl who like my friend. You two would get along so well. Like you speak and it sounds like I'm talking to my friend Tracy. Shout out Tracy. She made my graphic stuff because she's also super talented. I wish I was that talented. But kind of, I wonder what your thoughts are on, you kind of mentioned, you're like, I don't really know what like my style is quite yet.
Yeah.
And I think especially with, like, especially when you kind of like develop this to be more of a professional thing, there's like an aesthetic or like a style, you know?
Totally.
And I don't know how I feel about that because I'm like, I don't want to be like, or anyone to be like limited, you know, like if you're creating something and like, you know, it's not, I don't know, like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. And that's definitely like a daily discussion with myself.
Inner debate.
I, you know, I'm kind of like at the intersection of like design and illustration. And I kind of see them as intersecting things, but other designers see illustration as like a completely separate thing. And I think the difference is with like graphic design, you're kind of supposed to be a chameleon. Like you can adopt any style. And then as an illustrator, most illustrators get consistent work by having one style that like they can own and no one else does because, so I don't know. I this past year, I got to attend Adobe Max. I got a little scholarship from Chapman to go, which was cool because it's really expensive.
What's Adobe Max? Is that just like a giant conference?
It's like, so like Adobe is all of the like creative software and they hold a big convention every year to kind of like release the new software, but they also have tons of like creative professionals that do workshops and talks and stuff. Cool. So it was really cool. And I went to this talk with this illustrator, Lisa Congdon, who has like a really distinct style, like really awesome work. And she's, you know, been commissioned by huge companies. Like I want to say like Apple has commissioned her for illustration.
Cool. Yeah.
Really, really big companies. And the way she kind of explained it is like, rather than having a style, find your voice. Like, damn. Which really, like, that stuck with me because I definitely have this struggle of like, do I want a style? Like, I kind of have a style, but I don't want to get stuck in that. If I'm trying to get hired for design, I can't really be too stuck in my style. But I think the idea of like having a voice in design and creativity, it's like, what kind of things do you notice when you design? Like for me, it's like the personalities of maybe it's animals or maybe it's donuts. Like, who are these donuts? What are they saying?
Who are these donuts? Like, what do they want? I love that.
So yeah, I feel like having that voice, like what kind of things do you want to bring attention to in your design? Like, are you focusing more on typography, focusing more on illustration, like the kind of colors you use? I mean, I guess there's definitely an intersection between style and voice, but voice just feels like you're less locked into it, you know?
And it feels more personal too, I think. Like style is kind of like you choosing from like a Pinterest board or something, whereas your voice is like, that's all you.
Exactly. I think it's really about like knowing yourself and knowing what types of things grab your attention when you're walking around or when you're driving around. Like that's kind of my philosophy. Like I feel like I draw the most inspiration from like my surroundings. So yeah, and again with this like poster project, part of the reason I really like it is because it just helps me be more observant, like as I go about my day. And that's those little things that I notice, like that's what, you know, it's a little spark of joy in an average day. So yeah.
I feel like that also bleeds into like just from like my, again, fangirl obsession with your social media, because we kind of have a shared interest, passion in just like sustainable fashion and like thrifting and all that. And like even in the way you like do your style in terms of like fashion and such, like it's so I feel like that also bleeds into like that kind of creative aspect of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was abroad, I took a fashion design class, which was really, really cool. Like my mom taught me how to sew when I was little, so I went into it with some knowledge of knowing how to sew, but definitely not like knowing much about garment construction, because it's just
a
little more complex than like
just a little, yeah.
But so not only did I learn like fashion illustration in that class, but I got to put garments together, and my professor really pushed this idea that like if you're going to work in fashion now, if you're going to start entering that industry, you need to be thinking about sustainability and like the ethics of fashion. She actually worked at like a couture fashion house and left to go teach because she was just like upset with all of the issues in the fashion industry and wanted to be able to like train that next generation of designers and people working in the industry.
So wild.
So ever since then, I've had like a particular interest in that. And I definitely, it started out like I applied for a grant from Chapman to do this like fashion design project that's basically a commentary piece on like the ethics of the fashion industry and the environmental issues with it. And when I started that piece last spring, I was like, okay, well, I can't do this project and then continue buying fast fashion and like continue being a part of the problem. Like that's so hypocritical. So that was when I started to like look at my consumption habits and try and make a change. So now it's been over a year and I have basically completely committed to like stop buying any fast fashion. For me, it mostly looks like thrifting because I have my issues with ethical companies. Just because, I mean, there are many reasons, but like the price point of those companies, the fact that a lot of times they're greenwashing, they're not actually good for the environment, or they're not good for their workers. Like they're still high. But for me, like, I think breaking away from these like consumption habits that were so ingrained in me from like growing up, it's really freeing. Like I realized that I don't need as much stuff as I thought I did. Like that clothing isn't going to make me happy. Like I will say, like, I love fashion and I love having like a personal style, but it's way more fulfilling for me to like go to Goodwill and find this like green cheetah tank top.
I love that top
with like a matching cardigan. Like it's
so
amazing.
Fun. Like you would not find that just like at any like fast fashion store.
Yeah. And also the stuff you find at thrift stores oftentimes is like such better quality because it was made before the like whole fast fashion era. So yeah, I little overview of
your thoughts on the fashion industry. But I know when we like kind of had like our like accidental like chat about everything on our call last week, like I kind of mentioned to you how like I found like a journal because I'm like home like between whatever after post grad before going back to school, and I found like one of my journals from high school, and I again like I'm a very emo journaler, like I don't or like whatever, so I'm very like dramatic, like and shocking, and I was like like ranting at myself, and I was like so upset because I was like, I'm always a consumer, like I'm never a creator, like, and that's like in every like on Instagram, on like TikTok, on Tumblr. I'm a huge Tumblr girl. On Pinterest, on like fashion, in media, like I'm very much like a taking in rather than like I don't know, I never like gave out, and I'm a bit better about it now. I think the podcast really helped with that. Oh, like this is my little thing. But I don't know, like what's like the consumer versus like creator kind of like relationship, because I think we all are both.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the struggle that you were describing and that frustration is so real, because I definitely feel like it's easier for me now with like having a little bit of like a platform to share my work, and like having really dove into it. It like feels good to be putting work out there and to have it be received. But I've also definitely been like on the other side of that, where you just see so many people putting out amazing work and you want to be able to do that, but you don't really know how. And I think it really is just about like finding your niche and like practicing something and being good at it. But at the same time, like I'm definitely a big consumer of media. Like I love listening to podcasts. And I think you need to find that balance of it, because like in order to produce work that people respond to, I think there needs to be a certain level of like humanity and like empathy in your work. Empathy in the sense that like, it can talk to other people besides yourself. So yeah, I don't know. I guess like consumption is a big topic, because it's like there are different, there's like consumption of goods and fashion, which I feel like is kind of this, I don't want to be dramatic, but like there's like evil that we're so like brainwashed to participate in. Like I remember growing up and, we'd go to the mall for fun and like pick out the like 10 for $5 at Claire's, like all this shit that we didn't need.
Totally.
And that was like entertainment. That was exciting as a kid. But then there's also consumption that's like, really beneficial. Like I'm a big, as I mentioned, like big podcast listener. Like I find so much inspiration and like windows into different worlds that I otherwise wouldn't know about through podcasting. So yeah, I don't know. I think like everything, it's a balance.
100%. Yeah, I think it's hard to find it. At least for me it was. And I think I'm being less emo in my journaling nowadays, hopefully. But no, I totally agree. And I think you kind of like mentioned, you're like, we went and I don't think you're being dramatic. I like agree with you. I think we were brainwashed. I know is whatever, very whatever word, but I think we're definitely taught, like it's definitely like it's just like the way we were raised in our culture. It's just a part of our culture in the States. And I think that's capitalism. So where do you think kind of like creativity and creation kind of like lives in the world of like capitalism?
God, yeah, this is this is tough, because graphic design is like capitalist art. Literally, it's art with the purpose of selling shit and like pleasing a client.
Right.
And it's something that I've been struggling with for the past year. Like once I got closer to graduation, it was like, okay, like gotta figure out what kind of job I want to get in design. Like, how can I feel good about this? Like I love fashion, I love style, but I don't want to work at a company that's like, selling fast fashion or it's just tough. And then even working at an ad agency, it's like, what am I selling and why? What's the point of this? Like, it's tough though, because we're also in this position where like we need to participate in capitalism in order to get out of it. Like you need to be able to support yourself to then take the time to be an activist or invest your own money in like a better cause. So it's like, I don't know how to answer that question. Like graphic design, I guess the best that I can try and do, and the kind of like happy medium that I settled on, is like if I'm using design to promote things that better people's lives, like I see like entertainment and magazines, like editorial design, or even creating imagery that like provides a certain sense of joy or happiness, like that's kind of a loophole in a way. Not
like I found it.
like, movies isn't like a big capitalist industry, like
Hollywood, what?
But yeah, that's something that I think I'll struggle with for a while, and I don't know what the answer is, because stuck between a rock and a hard place here. Like I don't want to work for a big corporation, but I also would love to be able to pay rent and get health insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, I feel like for creatives especially, it's like a really hard rock, and it's a really hard place.
Yeah.
Which is like quite a bummer. But I know you mentioned you're like, I'm kind of passionate about like turning my hobbies into like side hustles.
Yeah. I
would love for you to like delve into that.
I'm brainwashed by capitalism. This is the proof of it, because
you're like, here you go.
Every time I learn a new thing, I'm like, oh my God, how can I make this into a business? Like, how can I make money off of this? I would say like the main thing that I kind of fell into back like over like a year and a half ago, I drew this portrait for my boyfriend for his birthday, and I posted it on Instagram, and I did it in this kind of like fashion figure style, because it was when I was taking that fashion class. And suddenly people started DMing me and were like, oh my God, wait, can you do this for me? Like, I'll pay you. And it just kind of like took off from there. So I made couples portraits on Instagram. Don't know how I got that handle, but it was available.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
I know. It was amazing. I was like, how is this not taken? But yeah, and in May of last year, I made that Instagram account for it, and it really took off, and I was getting like tons of portrait orders every week. And so at that point, like I quit the like office job I had and was like, okay, I'm just going to do this all summer.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it worked out like really, really well. So after that happened, I was kind of like, there is so much opportunity with social media. Like I could not have expected how successful that was. And I kind of just like fell into that. So that's the encouraging thing about like social media, is that there's so much room to like market yourself and to actually be able to turn your hobbies into side hustles.
Into making a living and trying to survive in this post-grad recession crazy world.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely, another thing I learned how to do was like dye silk scarves.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. And then I bought all these materials recently, because I was like, I want to get back into this. I hadn't done it since I was abroad. And then as soon as I started doing that, I'm like, okay, how can I sell these? How can I like, and then I'm like, am I getting away from the joy of it? It's that same kind of issue that we talked about at the beginning of the episode of like, when something you enjoy doing becomes work, like how do you keep enjoying it and not feel the pressure of like capitalism on your shoulders.
Really, yeah. My gosh, yeah, just a light burden of capitalism. Yeah. No, for sure. It's like creating for like fulfillment sake and creating to like make money. And I think it's possible to do both, at least especially in the beginning of things. But I just wonder like how like I just feel like the longer you kind of do it for, like that fulfillment kind of loses itself a bit, because I don't know, maybe that's just me.
Yeah, but I think you just need to keep like finding new ways to make it exciting for yourself. Like, and I think to kind of tie it back, like that's where consumption comes in. Like, always being on the lookout for like new ideas, to kind of like refresh your work, you know, like to me, it's being observant in my daily life. It's listening to podcasts. It's reading about what's going on in the world. Like watching, I'm not a huge like TV movie watcher, but like, okay, you know, I do enjoy Drag Race a lot.
It's a good one to like.
Huh?
It's a good one to like.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I did not finish my thought.
No, you're so good. I don't mean to roast. This is just like just a genuine curiosity. Why are you not freelancing?
Well, here's the thing. I'm like, obviously post-grad life has not gone the way I planned. But,
sure.
You know, I kind of had this moment where like the same way that I kind of mentioned earlier, how I like went into all of my college applications as a business major and then was like, wait a second, I don't want to do business. I want to do design. Like I should just do it. Mm-hmm. I was like in the shower thinking about that. And I'm like, wait, I'm in the exact same place. Like, I don't necessarily want to work like at a corporation. Like if my end goal is freelance, then I should just go for it. Obviously it's a risk to take. Sure. I'm kind of trying to see how this like internship pans out. There's the potential of a full-time offer on the horizon, but of course, like they're very hesitant because of COVID and
the state of the world.
So, but honestly, I'm kind of the type of person that just likes to sit back and see how the chips fall. That kind of worked out for me with my college decision. Like I had two options, like financially, between Chapman and my state school. And I never thought I would go to Chapman, but I got enough scholarship money and my mom couldn't say no because it was the same price as the state school. So I was like, bye.
See you in California.
And that like worked out better than I ever could have expected. And I just feel like, you know, I don't necessarily believe in like fate, but certain stuff like that, I just feel like I couldn't have, if I had chosen where I wanted to go, it wouldn't necessarily have been Chapman. And like, I don't think I would have necessarily been as happy as I was with like how the past 4 years panned out. So as far as like freelance and the decision to go at an agency or work for myself, I think I definitely need that like agency experience. So I'm just going to see what happens and what works out. But if I get into the position where I'm unemployed and need to freelance, then like, yeah, I'm going for it. Cause I think that's a great opportunity too. But I don't know. I'm always the more like relaxed. I'm just going to see how things work out and then figure out what my goals are and figure out how to reach that. But right now I think I'm in this kind of place where I'm not entirely sure what it is that I want to do. So just hopping on the train.
How do you say post-grad?
Yeah. I'm hopping on the train, seeing where it takes me. Like, so yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think just from like, I think a lot of like our peers and stuff that have also like graduated this year, or just like, I think post-grads forever, it's always hard to know what to do. And I think even if you have like a vague idea and you're like, okay, I know design and like, you know, creativity and like this kind of realm is like my ish. I think like that's already so awesome. And I'm like super stoked for you because like you're obviously very talented and very hardworking at everything you do. So I'm sure it'll pan out no matter what.
I'm sure I'm excited to see where this podcast goes too, because I think you've got potential.
It's just fun. It was so interesting though, because I was thinking about like I was really looking forward to this chat because this is like creativity, something that's very important to me. And I've always been hard on myself and I've always wished I was more creative. And I don't know what that means at the end of the day. Like, I don't know what it means to be more creative. I think it's just practicing creativity more is what I've like come to kind of realize. Yeah. And I'm trying to like reword and like re-teach my brain, like you are creative. It's not about being more creative. It's about like practicing that creativity more.
Yeah.
And I have been working on this podcast. Like I came up with the idea for it while I was abroad like a year and a half ago. And I on and off like working on it, you know, like not every day or so. And then it really like kind of ramped up during quarantine because silver linings, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember like I released the first episode and I was like so stoked. Like I was just like high on life. Like I went to grab food after like to celebrate like takeout. And then that night I was just like, oh my God, it's out there. Like I was just like this thing that I've like been looking to for so long, that I've been wanting to do for so long. Like it's just like it's not like I don't know, it just like changed and I was just like okay, and like it kind of like went from this weird creativity thing to kind of like okay, this is something like I have to I want to do this, do not get me wrong, I like this is still something that I thoroughly enjoy, and like I think even if I weren't releasing these episodes, like again it's very much like an excuse for me to like be like, Jen, I think you're cool, be my friend and chat with me, you know what I mean? But it was just like a slight shift there. And I was like, whoa, okay, let's process what's going on here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool like talking with you and just like hearing your like outtake on that.
I totally understand that feeling. I think most projects that go on for too long, like with that fashion project that I mentioned earlier, you know, at first I was really excited about it. I have all these ideas. And then once it comes down to actually making it, I'm like, what am I doing? And I think for me, like, it was that fear of failure that was getting to me. Like, and I'll be completely honest, like, I haven't finished that project.
I was going to ask about it. I was like, that sounds so cool. Can I like see it somewhere?
Yeah, I like have all the sketches and I started making the pieces, but I kind of lost that motivation that I had. And I really do think it's because I was afraid that I couldn't make it the way I envisioned it, which is a shame because I
perfectionism.
You do have to push through. You have to push through that. But I think that's probably a similar feeling, especially when you're tackling something so big and you have such high expectations, and then like it comes down to actually putting it out there, and you're like, oh my God, this got so much bigger than I thought it would be.
I feel like when it comes to like, I've had projects in the past, like I'm like a very like active, involved person, like whatever. I've always been that person that's like doing like too many extracurriculars, and everyone's like, Catherine, like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, no, this is just like my life. Like that's who I am. And like, I don't know, like maybe because like you were like how that lady at the illustrator at Adobe Max was like, oh, your voice, this is literally my voice, like quite literally. And I think just because it's so much more personal, and like this is literally my soul, like literally called Soul Chats, like hi, like it's literally me, you know. I just like I've never released, like I've never, like I don't know, when it comes to creativity, it's a part. Okay, sorry, I'm rambling here, but I was having a discussion with a friend, and we were kind of talking about creativity. And do you ever like think about something and you're like, oh, this is how everyone thinks, until someone's like thinks different and you're like, whoa, I didn't realize that was like up for debate. So we were talking creativity, and I think this is more like maybe artistic creativity, because I think there are kind of like different definitions of creativity.
Totally.
There's like innovation and like creativity in like a traditional workplace where you're, being creative in terms of problem solving. And there's like, and I think they go hand in hand, but I think there is also some.
Yeah.
But for me, I've always thought of it as kind of like emotion. I've always felt it intrinsically linked with emotion and with expression.
Absolutely.
And okay, so you agree. My friend completely disagreed.
Really?
Yeah. I thought that was like so fascinating, because I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, no, I like know artists, and like me personally, like I don't think of it as like an emotional experience. Like I think it's very much like a critical one.
Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, yeah. I see both sides. But I don't think it's black and white. Like I don't think it's one or the other. I think that it's a balance. Like with design, like design is strategy based. It's critical thinking. How are you going to solve this communication problem? But the other side of it, I think like the most impactful design work is stuff that incorporates emotion, whether it's like overt or a little bit more subtle. Like the best way to communicate with people is with emotion. So I think it needs both.
Yeah. I agree. That just threw me for a loop. I was like, we were like driving, and I was like driving down PC, like we were like, whatever, we were like quarantining, we were like, trying to do something. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I was just like, and then Ribs came on by Lord, and I was like, what is happening? Like, yeah, literally. I was like, I don't know what's going on anymore. But, yeah. And I think she's like, definitely, I think she's right. I think I'm right. I think we're both right. Neither of us are wrong, but it was just super interesting to kind of like, and she's a graphic design minor. So it was like, I think, again, like, I don't know if it comes back into the intention behind your creation, whether it is like for a project, for a work project, or for, a client, or if it's like, this is podcast is for me, so it is more emotion based. So I think it's also like situationally and environmentally based, but,
yeah, I think it's a sliding scale, like.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way of wording it. Yeah.
Because with like, there's like the stereotypical like studio artists that like throws their emotions on canvas and like, this isn't me. And then there's the other side, I guess, if we're just talking about like, visual art with design, that's like, okay, like there are clear objectives here. Like there's a problem to solve. But a lot of times that can be done with emotion. So sliding scale, that's
sliding scale. No, I freaking love that. Cool. All right. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. I hope I haven't been rambling too much. And I also hope my occasional crunch on a taco doesn't
lo-fi. This is a lo-fi podcast. We're enjoying every second of your taco. Don't even worry. It's so funny because I've been like, I edit my own episodes and stuff, and I'm from Southern California. I don't know if this is also SoCal or if this is just like a I don't know what this is, but I did not realize how often I use the word like.
Oh God, yeah.
And now everyone's gonna like pay attention. I shouldn't have said that.
It's at the end of the episode. It's at the end of the episode.
You're gonna be like, Catherine, and I'll be like, ah. But yeah. So now that I'm like, you just gotta. I like have to pretend it's not my voice when I'm editing and stuff, because I just get too, uncomfy. But perfect. That was such a good chat. I literally so fun. Well, cool. So kind of like either with that in mind or not, is there anything that you kind of want to manifest for the moment?
Yeah. Seems pretty spot on with what we talked about, but I would like to manifest creativity for everyone and working past those feelings of worry about failing and just getting out there and doing something that makes you feel a sense of joy. I think that it's a really good time to be tapping into that like creative side and finding a little hobby or something that just like brings you a sense of joy throughout your day, especially when, you know, we're in quarantine and everything going on in the world. It's hard to check in on yourself and take care of yourself emotionally. So that is what I would like to manifest for everyone this week.
I love that. Yeah, I think I'm probably in the same vein. I think I really am. I'm moving next week. I think I mentioned that on another episode, but I really do want to kind of like want to implement more creative habits and stuff. And again, like I really am trying to like fix it on this, like getting rid of this like negative self-talk of me not being creative and really like switching that narrative to being practicing creativity.
Yeah.
So I'll manifest that.
I love
that. But thank you.
Amazing. Yay.
Jen, I'm literally gonna force you to be my friend.
Let's go on a walk.
Social distance walk. I know I'm so glad you moved to LA and you're, you know, figuring it out and drawing donuts. I think that's so fun.
I gotta figure out what my next business is this week.
If you dye a scarf, let me know. I would probably want to purchase it.
I know. I'm like, there's so many things I want to do, and then such little time working 9 to 5. But
again, we love capitalism and survival. But thank you for such an amazing chat. Thanks for just chatting with this girl who fangirled over you and was very not subtle about it at all. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it too. Yeah. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend.
Thank you for wanting to talk to me. I had a blast. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Yay. All right. Talk to you soon, Jen.
Bye.
Bye. Soul Chats is created and produced by me, Catherine Kalu. Branding and design is completed by Tracy Keller. Theme music is Buen Camino by Miss Bright Sea. Be sure to check out and support these fellow creatives by visiting my website, soulchatsbycatherine.com. While you're there, be sure to also check out episode notes, which include some questions brought up during today's episode to keep in mind for the week, as well as our guest links if you'd like to follow them and get to know them a bit more. You can also find links to the show's social media platforms where you can keep up with what Soul Chats is doing next and connect with our community. And of course, please do not forget to subscribe to Soul Chats wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, thanks so much, friends. I'll see you next week.